And the love, liking, and understanding myself as I went through these stories and developing as a human, I recognized, wow, there's a self-abandonment that happens when you give way more to others than they give to you. And in the end, you're alone anyway. Because when you call
Mm.
somebody out on it, they're like, oh, you're tripping or you're doing too much or whatever. You're disposable, but the risk was more yours anyway because you put way more investment in than they did. So
Hello, my dear. Welcome back to the Darren Will podcast. As we jump into today's episode, we have a special guest, Johnzelle Anderson. So as we think about today's episode, I want you to think about, have you ever stayed in a relationship where you ever felt like you were not being poured back into? So today we're going to dive into relationships and talk a lot about ways to heal, to grow. And so Johnzelle, he's the author of Mixtape, a memoir. So he's got the book handy so you can see the beautiful book that he's got that is out. And so he'll be definitely sharing with like us of how to connect with the book and how to download and get the book. Johnzelle, he's also a licensed therapist by trade and believes in the power of storytelling to heal, to imagine, to disrupt, and to inspire. His writing focuses on mental health, race, relationships, and identity. He's an avid reader and he reads approximately 100 books. I was about to say 1,000. I'm like, oh my God, 100 books annually. He lives in Virginia with his daughter and his energetic shepherdor. Johnzelle, I'm so excited for you to share your My Darren World story and share more about your journey with healthy relationships, what it takes to heal, what it takes to honor your identity, what it takes to overcome adversity so you become the hero of your own story rather than being the villain or the victim. So again, thank you, Johnzelle, for joining the Darren Will podcast. Please share with listeners how they can get a copy of your new book.
well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is my debut book. It's called Mixtape and Memoir, and it is kind of like you said. It's a coming of age memoir. It is based around a mixtape, a playlist that I've made, and that's a double meaning because the prose is built around the framework of this playlist that I came up with, but also the word mixtape has mixed in it. So I talk about my mixed race identity. And it's my debut book. It came out about 2 months ago now. And so far, it's my favorite thing I've ever written. And I'll talk more about where people can find it later, but you can find it wherever you buy books online. And my website is johnzelle.co. So all of the different formats are there, but I'll talk more about that later.
Sweet. Awesome. Awesome, Johnzelle. So I love for guests to share their why. So I love how you kind of explain a little bit about the backstory, about even the name of the book. But can you share about like what inspired you to write the book and yeah, a little bit about your background of like what led it to the, hey, I want to write my story.
Yeah. I love to read, as you said. I read a lot. And my favorite genre is memoir. And though I enjoy reading memoirs, I always thought that you had to be older to write a memoir. So I'm 33
That's what
at the
I've
time of
always thought
this. Yeah, yeah. So
for
I'm like,
old people.
well, yeah. I'm like, well, do I have anything to say or whatever? But I've been a therapist now over a decade, and well, you're a therapist, so you kind of know about narrative therapy. And I'm a bibliotherapist as well, so I use books and storytelling within my therapeutic work. But in narrative, like sometimes like self-disclosure or sharing an anecdote with a client to help them understand the scenario, I'll share an anecdote about my life or something, and just to give context to somebody. And so many times my clients have been like, that's crazy. Like, you should write a book, right? Like different things. They're like, that sounds like a movie or something like that, right? So after hearing that for a while, but also being a person who reads memoirs, I've read some that weren't that great, especially, some of these celebrity memoirs are just like, I know you had a ghostwriter, but they could have tried harder. Sometimes I'm like, I could do this. I could do it better than that, right? And so I did it in my own way. But as far as why now, you know, there's not a ton of memoirs that cover like identity and coming of age in with the mixed race dynamic. You know, I have a West African father and a white mother. So, and then that experience of being Black but raised in whiteness, like, and so not only is it to tell the story and to give voice to people living a similar experience, but it's someone who didn't grow up that way could understand better about those dynamics. But it's not even about just being mixed race. It's about coming of age. It's about abuse, neglect. It's about, you know, just your cringy, like, developmental moments. It's creativity. It's culture, like growing up in the 90s and the South, and, you know, the major milestone things that are turning points in life for someone who grew up in that era, right? And so I think, well, I won't say I think I know, that for me, it was putting my story to page, but it was also it developed this thesis of around, like, I started noticing the pattern of unreciprocated relationships, and so I came up with this like thesis as I'm writing this. Is like, well, unreciprocated relationships will hurt you because they're unsustainable, and so you see a young man coming of age, but he's also dealing with a series of unreciprocated relationships, whether it be in the family of origin, whether it be with friends, whether it be in romantic relationships, and et cetera. So, and
Johnzelle,
then
can
what
you
does
break down what unreciprocated relationships are? Like, 'cause
absolutely,
I think sometimes as adults, we don't know that we're in an unhealthy relationship until, like, it's just, I don't know,
yeah,
smacked us in the face a million times. So, what is
yeah,
unreciprocated relationships?
great question. So unreciprocated means, well, let's go back to another theory that or a thesis that I came up with as I wrote this book. Every human craves connection.
Mm,
And I know that because we are not a solitary species. So people need people. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, people need people. Like, even in this, right? Like, you have a podcast, and I need platforms to talk about, you know, the work that I do, right? So I need other people, right? And or we're therapists, so people need someone to talk to, right? Like, we need each other. I need somebody who is a farmer to make have chickens to get eggs, right? Like, we all need each other. So if that is true, we can all probably, if we can agree that we need each other, we can also agree that every person in some capacity wants to be loved, liked, and understood. And not, when we talk about unreciprocated relationships, it means that that exchange of love, like, and understanding is off balance. So I believe that this connection goes three ways. First, internally, we should love, like, and understand ourselves. We can give love, like, and understanding to others, and we can receive love, like, and understanding from others. So there's three directions. Unreciprocated is when one or more of those ways is messed up.
is
Like,
that
if
why it
you're,
hurts so much?
it hurts because it throws the system off. We're supposed to
Mm,
have, if we're wired for connection, we have to be all right within, you know, to quote Miss Lauren Hill. If I was at home, I would have my Miseducation of Lauren Hill piece behind me, but I'm not at home right now. But she says, how are you going to live if you ain't right within? But, you know, we have to love, like, and understand ourselves. And when we give it to others, but it's not reciprocated, or we notice I give 90% and I get 10 back. When there's an imbalance, it hurts us because it's not sustainable. If I'm giving 90% and I'm only getting 10% back, or say, let's use this dynamic we have here on a podcast, right? If I talk the entire time and don't let you speak, that's unreciprocated. It's not mutually beneficial, right? And that's what I was getting at when I started writing these stories. I was like, wow, you know, and not to be, like you said, not the victim or the villain or the whatever, but when you recognize, I have a tendency to give more to people than they'll give to me. And the love, liking, and understanding myself as I went through these stories and developing as a human, I recognized, wow, there's a self-abandonment that happens when you give way more to others than they give to you. And in the end, you're alone anyway. because when you call
Mm,
somebody out on it, they're like, oh, you're tripping or you're doing too much or whatever. You're disposable, but the risk was more yours anyway because you put way more investment in than they did. So they hurt
that's
us because
powerful
they're
though, the
unsustainable.
self-abandonment part. That's
Hmm.
powerful. That you really have to abandon yourself in order to allow these things to happen. And
Mm.
it's like sometimes we don't realize we're abandoning ourselves when we're not having healthy boundaries or not honoring our needs, our wants, our identity, like
Hmm.
all those pieces, our worth. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Why do you think some people get stuck in these types of unreciprocated relationships?
The short answer goes back to that theory, right? We want connection.
Mm, yeah.
It's interesting, because I'm a therapist. So before I got on here, I was seeing a client, and she just went through a breakup, and she was kind of talking about the sacrifices she made and stuff like that, and kind of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas and whatnot. And and she's like, I'm trying to figure out why I allowed that, and I'm like, well, you wanted connection. That's human, right? We want to be loved, liked, and understood. So when we have relationships with other people, we give vulnerability, and we expect reciprocity. We expect it to be valued and to be appreciated and it to be nurtured, right? But sometimes we lose track of not so much it needs to be a tit for tat. I don't believe
Right.
50-50 all the time is
Right.
realistic, but there a lot of us will find ourselves, it could be either way. It could be a person who, because we talked about that exchange, right? Give and take. There are people who take way more than they give, and their
For
little bit that
sure.
they give, they think they ate.
For sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, well, I cooked once or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, I paid the car payment, and it's like, okay, you cooked, but so there are takers in the world, there are givers in the world, there are people who do a little bit of both, and it's not like giving or taking is wrong, but severely off balance hurts people, and I would say that
Mhm.
it to be fair, it does hurt the person who's a taker too, someone who can sometimes manipulate or take advantage or whatever. Those people are, I don't say hurting, but they're at a disadvantage too because they have some maturity to do when it comes to providing reciprocity, being a good citizen, right? Just like the person who gives their last for someone who wouldn't do it for them. But I think when you say, well, why does this happen? Because in our core, in our human design, we want to be connected with each other in various
Right.
ways, whether it's in business, whether it's in relationship with family or romantically or whatever, even in between countries, right? We want peace and joy, right? And so sometimes we lose track of, okay, I want connection, but is this a healthy connection?
At
And
what
we can
cost?
lose ourselves in, like you said, at what cost? And do we lose ourselves in the pursuit of connection that we forget that this is inadequate connection because it's
Mm.
unbalanced? So,
Ooh, that's deep.
yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As we think about your story, was it hard to put pen to paper? I know kind of talking about the inspirational moments, but like the process of writing. I'm a writer as well, so I
Hmm.
and I think every writer goes through their own process. But for you, like, what was that process like? Was it hard? Was it like super vulnerable where you had to like disclose this to maybe family members you might be in here and I might have to pseudo your name or
Hmm.
like how was that process for you sharing your story and writing that pen to paper?
Yeah. So it took me, I want to say it took me like a year and a half to write the original manuscript. And then it took like another year and a half to get to publication because the publishing industry, you probably know a thing or two about that. For me, I am a therapist. I always tell people don't trust a therapist who ain't been to therapy. the year I started writing this book, I went through like 4 therapists that year. Like, first of all, finding a therapist when you are a therapist.
Yes.
Finding a good therapist when you're a therapist that doesn't try to be like, "Ooh, you think you." It's almost like, "No, help me. I'm not trying to. I can't look in a mirror and be like, oh, I could just be my own therapist, right?" It was hard, but what I'll say is the therapy didn't help me writing the book. It helped some, but when at the point I was at where I really got into writing the bulk of this, I was like, okay, we cut off the fourth one. I'm just going to write this book, and it really to me felt like therapy on steroids because I was going back. There's a concept I use in the book that's from Ghana. It's called Sankofa, which means to go back and get it. And I was going back to the beginning. You know, there were some very vulnerable, hard things to write about, and whether it was far back or more recently. And the process was cathartic, it was challenging, it was fun because I got to do it in my own way. I got to make like a literary version of a mixtape, right? I got to pick the tracks that I was going to use to frame the what I was saying and stuff like that. So it wasn't all hard. Just like my book isn't all trauma. You know, it's fun. It's culture. It's musical. It's cringy at times. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. Like someone says, like literary whiplash. Like you're like trucking along, and it's like, oh, this is cute. This is ooh, and then it's like, ooh, wow, that happened. Wasn't expecting that. You know, so. But I also like to think that I take care of the reader in that I paste it and I balance it so that because I'm thinking it's like sitting down with somebody you don't know yet, but by the end we're friends.
Mm,
And you know, I'm going to take care of you. Like if I just told you something heavy, I'm going to give you something lighter, or you know. Um, so yeah, that process of putting it down, it it helped me develop a lot, and I wasn't expecting it to be what it ended up like when I first started writing it. I didn't expect it to be what it ended up being in many different ways, but I also didn't think I would need this book when it got said and done. And maybe I'll get to that later, but the lessons of unreciprocated relationships hurts because they're unsustainable. Little did I know that I needed this book before I had finished this book. So
that's
hopefully
sweet.
that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah, that's sweet. As you think about mindset, one quote that you had, so my peace and my joy are no longer debatable. So talk
Mm.
about that shift in mindset when you think about your story.
I think I start things with I think, and then I stop myself and I be like, I know. That's my growth. That's my healing, right? Peace and joy are non negotiable because those unreciprocated relationships required me to abandon my peace and my joy. They required me to abandon my freedom. And so, them not being negotiable means I'm not doing unreciprocated with you. I'm not doing grossly imbalanced with you, whether it's business, whether it's friend, whether it's family, whether it's romantic, whatever. If it's
So
grossly
across the
imbalanced,
board.
yeah, it has to be because I have an entire book of times where I didn't know or didn't recognize that. And, you know, I am the example of it hurting because it's not sustainable. And I think a lot of people can relate to that because we're therapists. We talk to people and we see it all the time, right? People don't always act right, and that's cool. But go not act right with somebody else, and that's where the expectations and the boundaries come in. What do I expect from you, and what are you not going to do around me? And that's why I say my peace and my joy and my freedom are not negotiable because only when you walked through and been through things and you realize I'm not going to keep doing this over and over again, that you have to change things up. And yeah, I'm not negotiating on those three things because it, I deserve to live this life that I have, and it's not even selfish. It's really just like don't don't take more than you can give, or don't don't make my life more difficult than it needs to be. And let me give you another theory since we're here. I think there's three ways that you can deal with a person, okay,
Okay.
in life. And I have this wild theory of world peace. So hear me out. It's real concise.
Okay.
If I'm dealing with a person, I can do one of three things. I can make their day better, I can leave them neutral or leave them alone, or I can make their day worse. If we eliminate the make it worse, wild thought. If we eliminate make it worse, that leaves us with leave them alone or make it better. If we eliminate make someone's day worse, world peace. That's it. I personally try to leave people alone or make their day better. And I expect people to either leave me alone or make my day better.
I like that motto.
I'm cool with either. If you make it worse, then the Section 8 is going to come out and I'm going to, choose violence. But but my piece is not negotiable. So that's I'll leave it at that. There's some humor in there, but I'm not lying either.
Yeah. And I think when you've been through something, you learn not only just to get tough skin, but you learn not to keep making the same mistakes because it hurts too much. And so you learn there's a cost to keeping the foolishness going on. You talk about going to West Africa in 2023. Why was that so pivotal for you?
It was pivotal to me because I am the product of a West African father who did not try. But I'm also the product of a white mother who didn't try in other ways, right? And then growing up, I knew that my father was African, but my first racists were my white caregivers. I was Black raised in whiteness, right? And so the most racist things about Africans that you can imagine, comparisons to apes and all these other things, right, were happening in my home.
Wow.
But then I didn't have the connection to those roots through my father because he didn't connect with me, right? So
You're
when
an
I
only
went,
child, or
no. So on my mom's side, I have a half brother that I grew up with. And on my father's side, to my knowledge, he has a total of 5 kids, I think. And I'm one of them. So the point is, I know that I'm a product, I'm part African. My second memoir, when I get around to it, is going to be called Half-African. Stay tuned for that one, Half African.
Okay.
Yeah, the roots, growing up in the African side, the Black side, not really being celebrated or appreciated or cultivated, and because what is a white woman going to know about that or whatever? So I learned or adapted, I grew up in my early years being told what I was by my environment. In my 20s and now into my 30s, I am deconstructing and unlearning the miseducation and coming into my own of who I am, right? So going to Ghana, which I intentionally chose Ghana instead, because my father is from Sierra Leone. I went to Ghana because I was like, well, I don't really got roots from you anyway. I don't know it doesn't make a difference if I go to Sierra Leone, if I go to Ghana. So I just wanted my own space to start that journey. So it meant a lot to be on the continent and to feel welcome. They say Akwaba, which means welcome in Ghana. And I've been back now to Ghana 3 times. This last December, I took my daughter for the first time and we went to Sierra Leone for my first time and her first time before we went to Ghana, right? And so it was a full circle moment, and I'm taking my child to the place that my father immigrated from, Freetown, Sierra Leone. But it wasn't through him, it was through me choosing, okay, I don't need my roots to do right by me in order to connect here. So, but then also bringing my daughter so that she doesn't have to wonder where she comes from, I can show her. So that's why West Africa has been so meaningful to me.
Wow. Yeah, beautiful full circle. Beautiful. So as we start to wrap up, what are some words of wisdom when you think about relationships, or we talked about reciprocity? So what are some words of wisdom that you have for listeners that they can take as far as action steps today?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're worthy of connection. You're worthy of
Yeah.
reciprocity. And if I'm worthy of peace, joy, and freedom, so are you. Okay. And when I say worthy, I want to distinguish something. Worthy means it is innate. It's not entitlement. Entitlement is I ought to have this thing. Worthy is you should have these things regardless. We're all worthy of food, clothing, shelter, transportation, and connection, relationships, right? Those are things most of us can agree upon. Now, get to going in the political discourse and stuff like that, it gets hairy. But we are all worthy of a certain quality of life, right? So, speaking of relationships, you're worthy of reciprocity. You're worthy of joy and connection, love, like, and understanding internally, externally, receiving. But also be careful not to turn that into entitlement. If I say to you, well, you need to love, like, and understand me, that's me being entitled, telling a very single person what they ought to do for you. It's a choice, right? You can't make anyone love, like, and understand you. And if you want to love, like, and understand somebody and they don't want to reciprocate, you can't do that because it's not an exchange. And so what I'll say is you're worthy of it. Be careful with where you're going to for the source though. Because not all sources are created equal. And that's might be how you can end up in an unreciprocated thing is if you say looking for love in all the wrong places.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't just romantic, but where you're seeking connection, you have to have discernment there. And please don't mistake this as just because I wrote a book that I'm an expert, just because I'm a licensed therapist, I'm an expert. I'm still learning, okay?
We all are.
But you're worthy of connection, and I think that gives hope.
Yeah.
We're wired for connection. That means we're capable of it. Is everyone going to do right by you? Hell no. They're not. But are there good people who will? Yes. Will you have to search high and low and start, stop, and set boundaries and expectations and all of this? Yes. Why? We're constantly works in progress, but you're worthy of the connection. So start there. That's hopeful. And also understand that, like, some takeaways, words of wisdom. I usually end my therapy sessions with clients, and I really mean this. It sounds pithy, but I tell my clients, so imagine you're my client. I say, be kind to yourself, and I'll do the same. And what that is it's kind of the culmination of all these other things I've said. Of you are worthy of going easy on yourself and being kind to yourself, whatever way that is. Kind to yourself as in going to exercise or going to pay your bills or whatever it may be that is being kind to yourself. And then when I say I'll do the same, that's me leading by example. I'm not just saying it to be pithy. I, Johnzelle, need to go out here and be kind to myself too. So when I remind my client to do that, I also make a commitment to say, if I'm asking you to do something, I'll do it too. So I would also leave your listeners with, be kind to yourself and I'll do the same. And so will you.
Awesome. Lots of love. All right.
Likewise. I'm reciprocating that love. Yes.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you, Johnzelle. It's been an honor getting to hear your story, getting the honor to hear some different ways to live in a healthy space, not only with friends, with family, with our coworkers, like every domain of connection. And so I'm so grateful. How can listeners connect with you if they want to go deeper, if they want to get a copy of the book? Like, share the best ways they can best serve them.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to show the book again because, first of all, green is my favorite color, and my green
Yes.
glasses are right there on the book. So I love that. Anyway, this is Mixtape, a Memoir. You can get it wherever you buy books online. So it's available like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Bookshop. If you want an easy way to look for it, you can go to my website, which is johnzelle.co, John like Nancy, Z like zebra, ELLE.co. And on there, all of the links are there. So the Amazon link, the Barnes and Noble, bookshop link. But if you want a signed copy, you can also click the link on there that says signed, and you can enter your information and buy it that way, and I'll ship it to you. It is also an audiobook narrated by me. So if you want the audiobook, the links are there as well. So I wanted it to be as accessible as possible. It's also available in the formats are hardcover, paperback, ebook, and audiobook. So any way that you read books, it is available. So johnzelle.co is the easiest way to find all of that. Also, if you want to connect with me, I am on Instagram at Johnzelle, same spelling, _ So Johnzelle _ on Instagram, johnzelle.co for the book.
Sweet. Awesome. All right, wellness friends. Thank you so much for joining today. Wishing you a beautiful day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe wherever you hear this episode. Wishing you a fabulous day, my dear. Until next time, keep living, keep loving, and keep doing well. Take care, guys. God bless.